I was of the view that the top riders in the world, those riders who are in the top 10, 15, whatever, they must have something different. They must be relying on a skill set and a feel that is more advanced than what I had at the time. And I'm like, what could it possibly be?
From performanceriders.com, this is the Parbery Podcast. I'm Nat Foxon, and each episode I challenge World Equestrian Games top 10 dressage rider Brett Parbery to explain and discuss what I call a Parberyism. That's a pearl of wisdom I've written down over the years of working together in our Performance Riders programs. Brett doesn't know what today's Parberyism is. Let's get into it. Okay, Brett, I've got kind of a weird Parberyism for you today.
Right. Oh.
I mean, you're not going to think it's weird, but everyone else might think like, what are these two on about? But I feel like we're at the stage with the podcast where, we all know each other pretty well now. We can start to go down some crazy lines. So let's give it a go.
To be honest, most of the Parberyisms, when I hear them said back to me, they all sound a bit weird.
Well, this one's going to take it to the next level. Okay, today's Parberyism is, I'm activating my third eye.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You go and say that. You go and say that in a public place, and you're gonna get locked up.
I've got to admit, whenever you say this in our programs, I do kind of on the inside giggle a little bit. It's just one of those ones like, oh my God, what are people thinking?
I mean, it sounds weird. It sounds like you're some, spiritual guru.
Yeah, it does. It does. So activating the third eye. Now, speaking of spiritual gurus, I did do a quick Google because I know the third eye is something they talk about in yoga, and I looked it up.
Yeah, maybe that's where I got it from. Because I don't know where it came to me, but it landed one day.
It landed. Maybe you took a yoga class and they said it. So it says, like, here we go, right? This is the first thing that came up when I Googled it. How you know that your third eye is open? You have heightened intuition, vivid dreams, sensitivity to energies, and heightened awareness. So there you go.
Okay, well, that's a good definition. I mean, I don't know about the dreams, but in saying that, the heightened awareness, that's all exactly what it's about. It's about awareness.
Over to you. Tell us, what is activating your third eye all about?
Well, I mean, it fits in line and in context when we are speaking about awareness and developing our awareness as riders of the entire horse that's underneath us. And usually, to hear it said just like that cold, it's like, oh wow, that's weird. But in the context of us human beings, we are so used to living our lives with our two eyes, in front of our body, and with our hands. And then all of a sudden, we get on the horse and we're supposed to be being aware of what's behind us, the way the horses work from behind, and the way we make half halts to get more load carrying on the hind legs. So therefore we need to have some feeling for the hind legs, but also then everything that's underneath us. So to take our normal way of living and suddenly go, right, you're now living for the next 20 minutes or half an hour or 40 minutes with your thinking about what's behind you and underneath you, and feeling with your backside and seat and legs, and not focusing on what is in your hands. Predominantly, of course, there's going to be some thing there, but focusing on your seat, legs, body, balance coming back to the hind leg and everything that's behind you and underneath you. And then go back to your daily routine with living in front of yourself again and with your hands.
Yeah.
So it just I use it in that context because then it's like a skill set that needs to be developed. So how do we develop it? Well, it's like everything when it comes to developing something, it feels really weird when you start. And the more you think about it and the more you use all different techniques, like when you're watching yourself on video or when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, or if you're watching your horse on the lunge, you start to get a picture of what is happening behind you and underneath you. And then when you're riding, you start to imagine you can feel it. And it's amazing when you start imagining you can feel something, and then you start checking in, on yourself when you're watching, could be your shadow, but looking at things that, like the mirror and the videos, looking at what is happening underneath you and behind you, you start to develop a really good feeling and a really good awareness for the whole horse. And then you start riding the whole horse and not just the bit you can see and the bit you can feel in your hands.
Mm. So, I mean, you sort of mentioned you're not quite sure where this particular phrase came from. Do you remember sort of how or why you started using this?
Well, I was of the view that the top riders in the world, those riders who are in the top 10, 15, whatever, in their skill set, they must have something different. They must be relying on a skill set and a feel that is more advanced than what I had at the time. And I'm like, what could it possibly be? And then I'm thinking, well, they would probably, everyone tells me to ride my horse from behind and make a half halt, and all this information I was getting during my lessons and talking to people. But I thought these people must have a better feel of what's underneath them and behind them than I do. So I thought, how could they do it? Well, then I thought maybe if it's this third eye, or just I've got to grow this feeling somehow. And I'm the sort of person that it has to make sense. So if it's kind of got a name and a sense behind it, I'll then make it work. So once I thought, oh yeah, that's it. It's going to be, I'm going to feel like I'm expanding this part of my brain that feels the horse and sees the horse and understands the horse and can see it crystal clear behind me. I'm going to call it the third eye. And I don't know where that came from. It probably did come from a yoga expression.
Yeah.
But
it probably came from one of the 3 yoga classes you've done in your life.
Yeah, exactly. In between the groaning and moaning.
Yeah, that's right.
But so once it had a name, once I had a concept, and once I had something to chase, and I believe that those really top riders in the world, they do have this skill. They might not have named it, or come up with a concept. But once I felt like I named it and I knew what I was chasing, then I just started to find ways. And it's amazing. We talk about, all the time we talk about personal development. How do we keep developing ourselves personally so that we can become better riders, trainers, and competitors in dressage? Well, once I had something to chase that I thought, this makes sense, this must be what they're doing. And then I could develop it through visualization and using all of those wasted minutes in the day that we talk about, just making myself grow this. And it's amazing when you run these personal experiments, sort of got a feeling like I'm a bit of a mad scientist, because I was running this experiment going, I wonder how much I can develop this feeling. And then you realize after a while, it does grow. Like it gets stronger. That feeling does get stronger, and it is like a muscle. And the more you work it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, well, let's go a bit deeper into how you do actually yourself go about activating what you call this third eye. So you've mentioned a couple of things there. Visualization was one, and using scrap minutes. Do you want to go a bit further into those 2 ideas?
I mean, activating, I'm not sure if I probably have said that, but it's like, I guess what's the difference between saying activating or waking it up or growing it? But it is just a feel. It's a feel for the whole horse. So when I talk about visualization, I probably subconsciously do visualization now way more than I think I do. I find that I'll be doing it. I mean, I've got the benefit of being able to stand in an arena all the time and teach and coach people how to ride. So when I'm coaching them for a split second, I might just visualize myself doing it and visualize myself doing whatever I'm telling them to do. but with my third, feeling the horse from the back end, like trying to rehash or re-feel what I would feel from my third eye, even though I'm explaining it to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the opportunity to practice that a lot. And that is probably the main benefit of coaching all the time is you do get the chance to go over things over and over and over. And if you're interested in riding well yourself, you'll use that to your advantage. So the visualizations could happen in the arena. They could happen when I'm walking to the stables. They may happen when I'm sitting in my car at the traffic lights. Just this split second where I can almost think about what's behind me when I'm on a horse. Imagine what the hips are doing. Imagine what the hind legs are doing. Imagine what the feet are doing when they're hitting the ground. Knowing the horse's footfalls to know exactly what sequence and what feet are on the ground and what feet are off the ground at the same time, and then developing this really clear picture of what I'm feeling underneath me. And that happens in those scrap minutes, the minutes that you're not really doing anything, like sitting at traffic lights, waiting for coffees, walking to stables, walking home from stables, mucking out stables. They're all minutes that you can, not a lot of your brain power is being taken up, so you can actually multitask safely by using a little bit of your brain power, your visualization, or whatever, while you're doing something else.
Yeah. So what's a ride like for you in which you're successfully, tapping into or activating or however you want to call it, using that third eye? What is that ride like for you versus one that perhaps you're not doing that as successfully?
It's chalk and cheese. Do you know what's really funny? And I think of this a lot when this is happening. When you're riding your horse well from the correct parts of the horse, so let's say from the back end, with impulsion but not running, horses in balance. Your legs and feet are working effectively. You're sitting. You tend to sit better when that becomes your focus. Sometimes when the front only becomes our focus, we tend to lean forward a bit more than normal. But when I feel like I'm riding my horse with the clarity from the back to the front better, suddenly the reins are the correct length. Suddenly the horse doesn't, test me as much in the reins. And if I'm making transitions and still riding all of the things I want to do, all of the positional changes and all of the transitions within paces, between paces, when I'm riding with a much more awareness of behind me, so many other things seem to take care of themselves. When I'm alternatively on the flip side, when I hop on my horse and I forget completely, and I'm only human, so this happens. When I forget completely about just the correct riding in the correct way and riding with the correct emphasis and awareness, suddenly the reins are too long, the reins are too short, the horse is leaning right, the horse is leaning left, the horse is pulling long, and it's chalk and cheese. And I've had plenty of rides of both of those situations, and it's almost like when you're doing it correctly, when you've made yourself take more time and be more focused on all the right parts, it's almost like there's a fog that you don't really care about what the front looks like. You don't, of course, you're feeling the horse on the bit, you're feeling the horse, you're making the adjustments so the horse has the correct posture in training, but after a while, that is almost a bit irrelevant, and you're making all of your adjustments through the horse's body and in reference to the hind legs. You're adding impulsion when you feel the hind legs need a little bit more impulsion. You're making a half halt and balancing the horse on the hind legs and getting a bit more carrying on the hind legs when it's needed. You're guiding the horse onto the correct lines with, your inside leg and then your outside rein to show the horse where it needs to be. And yeah, it's chalk and cheese.
What about is there a correlation between your best test rides and using that sense?
It's funny. Dressage is a really funny sport, right? So you can have really super results and not necessarily have felt amazing.
Right.
Because, the look of it and the feel of it is two different things, as we know. I have definitely had tests where my awareness of what I think is correct riding, so from the back end, getting all of that, has been better than others, but I wouldn't necessarily say that resulted in better results, better scores.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But definitely, I've had one test in particular where I came out of there so happy. I couldn't have cared what I scored, to be honest, because the horse did do very well in the class, but it didn't worry me. Like, I just went in with the goal, I'm going to try and ride every single setup and movement with just my feeling, with this heightened awareness of the back end of the horse and the line from my leg and all these different bits. I'm going to have this much better awareness. And funnily enough, I came out and I was so happy with that. Really, really so happy that it didn't matter what I scored.
Yeah, right.
Because I do think, unless everybody has different reasons for competing, and for an enormous part of my life, the reasons for competing were to try and test myself and do as well as I could and possibly win the classes, and that would in turn boost my business, so then I could have more opportunities. And that's sort of the whole point of being self-employed, and what sometimes gets in the way of let's say it, being a great rider. Sometimes the commercial side does, but the results, as you get older, you start to look for more within it, like more things to take from it. And if I can ride my horses with this and develop these skills in myself, I know full well that will result in a better result long term.
Just a quick message from us. If any of the ideas discussed today resonate with you and you'd love to dive deeper, head over to performanceriders.com. There's a bunch of free content for you, and there's loads of opportunities as well to work with us by enrolling in one of our training or mentoring programs. performanceriders.com. Okay, so you spoke about how it's chalk and cheese, the rides for you that you ride with a really heightened sense of awareness, especially what's going on behind you, and a ride that you're not activating that third eye, so to speak. What about for us riders who are just new to this concept? What's a couple of giveaways that perhaps we're not as tuned in as we could be in terms of what's going on behind us? Would it be that we get a little bit fussy with our hands and the reins?
Yeah, I think that micromanaging and being fussy or only focusing on the front, that's the first indication that we are only thinking about the front of the horse, or let's say the first third of the horse, where we're failing to think about the rest of the horse. And yeah, just doing proportionately more with the reins than we are with our body and with our legs, and that would be the first thing to say, okay, I am only riding the parts that I can see.
Right.
A little bit about shoulder control, but perhaps, and a little bit about, okay, I'm placing the quarters to the inside. Of course, you need some awareness of the rest of the horse to do those things, but the essence of dressage is not. The essence of dressage is collection. Collection. How to produce a horse that is giving you the most of its athletic ability in collection. So, and with collection comes this whole group of muscles that have to, the horse's middle has to lift up and their back has to lift up, and they compress themselves, and with that their hips can come under, and they, if their posture's correct and they're nice and through, then those hind legs will work better, and we're putting the weight back on the hind legs. There's all of these skills required to get the horse into the ultimate of collection, which is different to just placing the horse into different positions.
Yeah.
So I don't want any listener to this to think, okay, well, I'm putting my horse's quarters in travers, well, therefore I'm thinking about the back end. You're doing a good job doing that, but the whole point of this third eye thing is, how do I train my horse to become better and more established and more developed within the collected paces, and being able to go from collected paces to medium paces to extended paces to and through the paces, because that is the hardest part of this whole sport. So I think if a rider is feeling like they're micromanaging, they're only really doing things in the front, that they are missing the concepts of riding the whole horse to enhance and develop the collected paces.
Yeah. God, I think we all need that printed out and put up in the arena. The essence of dressage is collection. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but we get taken down so many little pathways, or as you like to say, tangents, when we're training. Sometimes we lose sight of that.
Well, we do, and probably it doesn't help that 3/4, perhaps even more, I'm not sure, but at least 70% of the sport is taking you in that direction. And all of a sudden, the last 2 levels, say 3 levels, intermediate A, medium tour, and the big tour into 2 Grand Prix, that's when they ask the proper questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you collect the piaffe? Can you collect the passage? Can you collect to do pirouettes, 1-tempies? So it doesn't help that the majority of the sport you're doing doesn't quite steer you in that direction.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's all about collection. So
that's so true. It does feel a little bit that it's kind of sprung on you in the last second there.
Yeah, yeah, and you can do the pirouettes in the small tour with a bit of collection. You'll always get better marks if your collected candles at a pirouette candle is good, but you can get through the trot work with very little collection. And so it does come down to making sure that all of our participants in dressage are aware of this and understanding it, because the concept of collection is difficult.
Yeah.
But at least be aware of it, at least be working towards it. What skills am I going to need to give myself a chance to do it? Well, maybe developing this, let's call it third eye, or, having awareness of the whole horse. That's a skill I need to develop because it will help me later on in collection. Well, I'm going to start playing with it now. And just making it aware. Now, I don't really care if anyone calls it the third eye or if they call it something else. I don't really mind. For me personally, it was just something that I had to develop to get myself to where I wanted to be as a rider.
How awesome. Thank you so much, Brett, for telling us all about your third eye.
I feel like I've revealed a body part that no one's seen before. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's a Dorigo thing where you come from. I don't know.
The back blocks.
But I love it. And I love, like you said, that you put some phrases and some phrases that are easy to recall when we need them. And that's all of what your programs are about. Because it turns very kind of slippery, fuzzy concepts into something a little bit easier to understand and take with us into the arena, I think.
Yeah, no, it does. And I hadn't thought of it like that until I just tried to explain it. And once it had a name and a concept, then it started to develop. So, yeah, no, that's a good point.
Very inspiring, and I think we can all start practicing right now, of course, off the horse, as often these things happen, practicing activating our third eye and take it into the saddle and see what happens.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brett.
Thanks, Nat.